We believe the purpose of owning a business is funding your perfect life. Welcome to the next generation of growth and opportunity in the inspection industry. This is the Empire State of Mind. Empire State of Mind. Helping build companies with faster growth, higher profits, and more time freedom. Finally, a podcast for the home inspection industry and beyond. This is the Empire State of Mind. And this is your host, Matt Williams.
Welcome to the show. This show is for all those empire builders. If you're starting out, or maybe you've been doing this for a long time, we are here to chat about the inspection industry and what it looks like from today and moving forward. I got to tell you, today I am so excited because we have a phenomenal guest with us. Today we have Mr. Jeremy Lovelady, and Jeremy is here with us today. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the show. Jeremy, how's your day going?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a wonderful day to be here in the IEB studios. But you know, I wanted to get a little bit to people to kind of get to know you just a little bit. And so Jeremy, let's just start with this. You know, how long have you been in the inspection industry?
We opened our company in 2016. So 6 years. Okay.
And so I know this, but let's share with our audience a little bit about where you came from, because I know you had a different background, not in inspections. And so what were some of the industries you were in previous to home inspection?
So before home inspections, I was a builder. We focused on high-end residential and commercial remodeling and new construction. And then prior to that, I was in the automotive world. I was responsible for training, maintaining, growth activities, oversight, and fixing automotive locations that we had throughout the Houston metropolitan area.
Wow. So as a home builder moving into inspections, what are some of the things, do you think that give you an advantage getting into this industry, or do you think you had to unlearn some things? What do you think your take was moving from the builder side into the inspection side?
So just like most builders, I had that mentality. Home inspectors are morons. I hated home inspectors. It changed rapidly as I became a home inspector and realized that, hey, this was an unrealistic expectation, because I didn't know what the limitations were as a home inspector. So I had a great background because I did have the construction knowledge. I also had the knowledge of running a successful company that I was able to bring in as well. But I also knew, a little bit more about construction than the other home inspectors in the area. So that allowed me to kind of be a lifeline to some of my local competitors and be able to give them a source of answers and stuff as they had stuff that they came across that they weren't knowledgeable on.
So that's interesting. So typically when people are in business, they look at their neighboring people who are in the same industry as competition. But you just said something there where, like, you were trying to be a resource to help those who are down the road from you, doing the same business as you. Why would you do that? Why would you be helping what many would call your competition?
So it goes back to my automotive years. And when I was running automotive facilities, one of the things that we noticed as the corporate world is that the technician pay hadn't changed for decades. Technicians were making the same amount now that they were 10, 15 years ago. And the only way that we could fix that is if we came together as an industry and started to make real changes. And as soon as we did that, we were able to start creating quality of life for our employees. We were able to start raising our profitabilities, and we started having industries that thrived. So I took that same mentality over to the home inspection side. We're in an industry and a community where we can either work to propagate it and push it forward, or we can work against each other and keep it stagnant and where it's at. I find that it's much easier to help each other grow than sitting there trying to cut each other out from the knees.
That's fantastic. So you have a growth mentality, not just for you, but for even the people around you that are in different companies. That's just an incredible way to think about it. Just so we all know, like, you started your company a few years ago, but now I know that, like, are you still in the field inspecting, or do you have multiple inspectors in your organization?
We're a multiple inspection firm. Every now and then I go and help out on one. We get a lot of luxury homes that we inspect in our areas. I'm very proud of last year, out of the top 10 most expensive homes that sold in Houston, we did 6 of them, and we did the top 3. So I will always go and kind of shake hands and keep relationships strong and tight. But as far as going out and doing inspections, I'm really pretty much done with that as much as possible.
That's fantastic. So how many inspectors do you have out in the field right now?
We just put another one out today, so I am at 9.
That's fantastic. And that's just in a few short years. You went from just you by yourself to having 9 in the field. That's an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations on all of your growth. So,
thank you.
Yeah, man. So in that vein, like, what are some of the things that contributed to you growing your company at really what would be, I think, viewed as an accelerated rate?
So we kind of had the two-part. When I got into this industry, I got suckered in by my father. My father was retiring. He was looking for something to do after his world of retirement and something to segue into. And we Googled, and home inspector just kept coming up on the list. And my father goes, well, I don't want to go to the long school, so you get licensed, and I'm going to work as a license underneath you, but I don't want the professional. Fine, no problem, Dad. So I went and got licensed. Midway through the class, he goes, you know what, I need to get professional license because this is just too much information. So he decided to go ahead and get the professional license. And our goal was 1 or 2 a week. That was it. We didn't want to do anything other than that. And for a very long time, we stayed within, a 15, 20-minute drive of the house. We turned away work. We passed it on to competitors. We did whatever we could to not grow. And then we started having our agents sit there and tell us that, hey, we need you tomorrow. We need you this. And we were having to start telling people no, and we had strong relationships with these people. And I felt like we were letting them down. At that point, we just made a decision. It's time to make a decision. Are we going to stay small and have a fun little side income? Or what are we going to do with this? So we made a decision and said, okay, we're going to grow this. We're going to bring people in, and we're going to create the staff. So we brought in our first inspector. My business partner, Mike, stopped inspections for the most part. He did a few here and there. And he went and did growth activities to help drive that in and worked on the admin side. And then we also brought in another person to help answer phones. So that way we had somebody covering the calls, we had somebody covering growth, and then we had myself and another person out inspecting. And it just compounded up on that. There were definitely hindsight moments that we could have done and things that we would have done differently if we were to do it now again, and could have gotten there much faster if we would have gone into the industry with a growth-minded mindset. It just didn't happen until really about year 2 to year 3, somewhere in that time frame, that we decided, you know what, let's do something with this, and let's do something big with it.
So you went for 2 or 3 years.
Members just really pushed that even further.
That's awesome. So you went for like 2 or 3 years, like a couple a week, like a little side thing, and you're turning away business, funneling it to your competitors, and then the mindset changed from like, okay, this isn't like my side gig. This is, I'm going to bake something big out of this, and that's an incredible shift. I know there's people listening even today that are going to be like, man, I'm in the middle of that change, maybe that decision. What was the tipping point where you said, okay, like what was the benefit? Why did you say, okay, because at doing 2 or 3 or 4 a week, keeping it small, you got enough money for your family, you're happy, and why pick up the extra headache and stress? Like, what was your motivation to say, you know what, let's go big with this?
Well, the 2 or 3 a week rapidly became, 2 a day, rapidly became 5 days a week, then rapidly became 7 days a week. And we just had an issue where we couldn't say no. And so it kind of, we had to decide, what are we going to do? And I was getting to the point where, man, I'm burned out. My business partner's on vacation in Washington, D.C. We're having the best week that we've ever had. I'm inspecting 2 to 3 houses a day, and I'm just dying. And so we knew that we had to do something. And it was either dial it back or dial it forward. And we decided to do something fun. And we decided to dial it forward. I wish we would have gone into this industry with that mindset day one. But I also think it allowed us to find out who we are and what we wanted to be in this industry at a slower pace, and really develop that relationship as owners, and making sure that we knew how we could feed off each other for the best results. And when I kind of have an odd relationship because my business partner is my father. And so anything that happens in the business can also have a potential impact on our personal. And we've done a great job of mitigating that and keeping this, mindset, professional mindset here, family mindset separate. But we both got in the mindset of, hey, it's time to grow. We joined another mentoring group for a little bit, and they kind of got the wheels turning, but we felt like there was something lacking. Then we stumbled on the IEB. Mike got to go to a couple of things for IEB, and it started pushing him, and he started getting excited and invigorated. That kind of drew me in, and I was feeding off his excitement. I was able to attend some online stuff with IEB here and there, but being out in the field, I just couldn't do it until recently when I pulled myself out of the field more.
So what does that process look like? Because in my own company, it was the same way, right? We're growing, things are going well. And then there is that tipping point of like, okay, there's work to be done in the field. Do I have enough inspectors? And there's that weird gray area of like making the transition out of the field. What did that process look like? How was it easy for you? Was it hard for you? Just kind of talk a little bit about that. What was that like?
It's bittersweet. When you're getting out of the field, the first thing you do is you have fear. If I don't do it, what are the liabilities or risk? What if I don't do it? Am I going to lose these agents that love me? I'm going to tell you, I don't know of a single agent that stopped using us because I got out of the field. And the easiest way we found to get us out of the field was, oh, I'm sorry, Jeremy's already booked for that day. Jeremy's already got an appointment that day. He's already tied up. And they go, oh, okay, well then give me that other guy. And once they got to know the other guy, it was no problem. And then once we added another guy and they got to know him, it was no problem. And once they saw that all the other guys were doing it all the same way Jeremy did it, they didn't care who showed up. They knew they were going to be taken care of. The biggest issue I had was not the desire to get out after I could get over my fear mindset, was being able to not be drawn back in. Hey, you either can attend an IEB meeting today, or you can go do an inspection because everybody's booked up. What do you do? And as owners, we always look at the dollar, and we look at the short term. Hey, I can't let $700 go. I need to go do that. And so I get drawn in, and what I don't realize is, you're right, I'm going to make $700 today for the company. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take $15,000 to $20,000 away from the company next year because I'm not working on the business. So it's that short-term mindset. Hey, grab those dollars, grab those dollars, grab those dollars. Get them while people are calling. Say yes, do whatever it takes, and then not growing it in the long term. Our company is rapidly growing and rapidly going into new service areas, and a lot of that's because I'm out. If I wasn't out and able to focus on the activities that are required to do that, we would still be just grabbing for the dollars for that day, and we would be missing the bigger picture and the bigger opportunities, which some people are like, those opportunities are for you and your father. Absolutely not. Those opportunities are for our employees.
Wow.
And it's an opportunities to impact communities. It becomes much bigger than the owners.
Yep.
And I was talking to a company the other day in Austin, and I told them the same thing. I go, look, the only thing I can give you advice on is two things. Hire somebody to call to answer your phones, and you get out and work on the company, because you can't do what you're doing and make it grow with the current actions that are taking place in your organization.
What a massive shift Like when you're saying that, like, well, I'm going to grab that $700 today, or I'm going to spend time building my company and get $15,000 next year. Like that is huge, because that's exactly what it is. It's basically the short-term versus a long-term mentality. And the way you said that was just crystal clear. I loved that. I think that's something that for someone who's struggling in this area of do I get out of the field or not, it's understanding that getting out of the field isn't missing out on 700. It's building the 15,000. And that's a mega shift. I know me getting out of the field, it took me a little bit of time, and I struggled with that same mentality you're talking about of the short term versus the long term, and watching how like, well, we are going to miss this deal, this inspection, because our availability is limited. And it's hard to walk away from that. It just is, and knowing that, man, it's like that daily feed that comes in. Yeah.
It is super hard. And I think it's even harder not to get drawn back in when you're starting to see a down economy. I see a lot of inspectors are going, oh man, we're missing that $400 ticket. And I'm like, dude, you're going after $400 tickets, but you're not going to go out and do any growth activity. So that's fine. You're going to get a $400 ticket today, but you're not building any inspections for tomorrow.
Wow.
And that's the game. Is today is okay. You got to have cash coming in, but you got to be building for tomorrow, or your health of your company is in jeopardy.
Wow. Yeah. You're right. For the health of tomorrow, it's like you're harvesting today's fruit without planting seeds for tomorrow's harvest or next year's harvest. And you're basically robbing your future in order to grab something today. That is such a short time poverty mentality versus a wealth building, empire building mentality. The contrast is so stark. Just what you said right there is brilliant. I hope anybody who's listening today is picking up on that, like the understanding of the complete different mindset shift that's happening right there. I mean, that really is a big deal to make that kind of a shift. So you mentioned like what you're building is for your employees, and you kind of passively quickly kind of mentioned that, but I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. Like, how do you build something for your employees where people want to come to work and they want to come work for you, and they want to do inspections with your company? Like why do they want to work for you versus anybody else?
So our company is built on our culture. Our culture is hammered in. And our culture, our company motto is people matter. My personal motto is I want people to thrive, not survive. And any one of my employees will tell you all the time that is a true belief in our company. When people come and approach us about coming to work for us, we send them on ride-alongs. We do all these things, and that's the one thing that everybody keeps feeding back is like your employee feedback is always about how well y'all take care of them. And we're going through some growth right now. And one of the things that me and my business partner talk a lot about is how do you grow and keep that culture still in place, especially when you start to go across the state of Texas and then you're looking at going into other states. How does that culture remain? And we do a lot. We're changing our mission again. We're having our employees write our mission for us. We're having our employees start to design the company that they want to build. So we're getting them involved with that. We have a ton of meetings, and these are meetings with purpose. So every morning we have a leadership meeting or a quick check-in meetings with each division. And in that, we don't talk. The division leader talks, and the people in the divisions talk, and they talk about what things or obstacles they came across the day before. They start creating resolutions. They start creating their own corrective action programs. That becomes huge, and they become invested and bought in. Then we take those and we have a weekly leadership meeting between all the board members, our people's in department roles, but it's also broadcast. So any employee that can't make or is out in the field inspecting or driving or not on a phone call, they can all listen. And if you're listening, you're expected to contribute. So we have arguments. We talk about ideals. We try to flush out things. And we try to come into meetings with 3 ideas or 3 things that we're going to talk about. During the deals, we're going to assign 3 homeworks. And then the following week, we'll make an actionable decision on each of those items. So we're making real quick, progressive deals. We have once a month company meeting where we talk about the health of the company, where it's at, how the direction it's going, how we did the previous month, what our goals are this month, and we kind of go from there. We also started doing quarterly events with all of our team members.
Wow.
So we're doing, this Sunday, we're doing a bowling party. But we try to do things to build that company family and that company culture where everybody feels like they're a part of it and they have a voice. And not only do they have a voice, but their voice is encouraged to be heard.
That's so good, man. Like to be able to have that kind of a work environment where people love to come to work and they feel like they're bought in and like their voice is heard. Like how many times have people left a job, not because the pay wasn't great or the hours weren't great, but they just didn't feel like they were valued. And what you're doing is building value into the entire team where everybody can speak in and they are heard, they're listened to. And if they have a great idea, then they're able to put that into place. And man, that's just a great environment for people to have that value piece. So when you're trying to expand beyond your local market, potentially other cities or other states, which you briefly mentioned, how do you transfer that? How do you keep the culture alive from one location to the next location?
That's tough. Part of it is having to keep people in leadership, so to push and convey that culture on. And having everybody involved by their section, whether they're in growth, services, operations, with their daily meetings on a larger scale now, we'll probably have to do some type of regional parties.
Okay.
We talked about doing retreats for leadership as well. But it's also, I think the buy-in where people can be a part of any meeting that we're having, and in these meetings, we go through all our books, our accounting. Our employees can see exactly what I make a year. There is nothing hidden from them. And really, that transparency, they start going, holy cow, we know what they're doing. We know what they're saying. They understand what we're trying to build, why we're trying to build it, and what we're trying to do for them. We'll talk about, hey, my next goal is to do this. We need to do, in order to do that as a company, we need buy-in from everybody. How do we do this? If I want to buy a life insurance and policy for every employee, and it costs me $15 a month to do that, what do we have to do to accomplish that, to make up that difference in sales? Oh, okay, well, as home inspectors, we're going to push for 2 more ancillary services a week sold out. And they start coming up with that actionable plan. But we get everybody to buy in first on the ideal of, hey, could everybody use a $50,000 life insurance policy if something happened tomorrow? Okay, yes, everybody's going to agree. Okay, how do we make that an actionable item? What do we do to make that a reality? And what do we do to not talk about it either? That's the other thing that I think that we fell victim to early is we talk. Maybe there would be an action, maybe there wasn't. Now our meetings have follow through. And I think that helps with the culture too, because employees see that you're talking about something and then they see it come to fruition. Or they see it doesn't come to fruition, we give them a reason why. Hey, we researched this, in transparency, we found out, hey, this wasn't a viable option, and if we did it, we felt like we would jeopardize the health of the company. And here's why it would jeopardize the health of the company.
And that's so good. It's so good for your employees to see that, and for people in the company to see that, because I think sometimes there's this illusion that the boss is just like, sleeping on it's like Scrooge McDuck, he's like sleeping on a pillow stuffed, a mattress stuffed with $100 bills, and he's swimming through piles of gold, and because they see the big numbers, and every business you work in, every company you work for, you can see the big numbers. Oftentimes you can see, wow, there's a lot of sales happening, but to see the underlying, okay, well, what is the cost of sales? What is the cost of goods? What is it costing us to do all of this? And for them to see, hey, what's the viability, and we need to keep our percentages right. I mean, that's something we talk a lot about in IEB is are your percentages right for each department, or are you getting top heavy in a certain area? And for the employee, for your company, employees to see that and understand. I mean, that's such a fantastic way to approach it. Then it's like, hey, can we work on these benefits? It's like, well, we can, but this is what it takes to do that. And then now it's buy-in. It's like, well, they see that. I mean, that's just so brilliant, the way that you're doing that. I really love that. I hope that's something that myself and maybe others can implement. So I got a question for you. We earlier you were talking about how you started the company, just kind of a small thing, and then down the road you decided, let's make this a big thing. And you mentioned, well, if I was starting over, I wish I started with the growth mentality right up front. So if you were coaching another inspection company or another inspector who was getting started, and how would you coach them in that area? Like maybe they have an inspector or two, or maybe not, but they're wanting to grow. What are some of the things that you would say, like priorities? What do you focus on first if you're saying, I want to switch into a growth mindset? What's the first few things you should focus on?
First thing is you can't inspect and be growth mindset. In my book, it's too hard. Your attention is going to get pulled one way or the other. So if you're going to go into growth, you need to either be all in on growth or you need to be all in inspection. So you need somebody else to run that ship for you. You can't do both personally. Second is pick 3 activities and go do them better than anybody else. And if you find one activity isn't producing fruits from you, pivot. Find the third one to fill its hole. Don't be married to something that's not working. But find your 3 activities and stick to it. I think that we would have roller coasters in growth. We would hear a great idea from somebody else. We would pitch out an idea that was working for us. Try this new idea. It wouldn't work. We would plummet, throw that away. Sometimes we would pitch in another new idea that we heard, thinking that would fix it. And we're all along, we should have been staying with the activity that was reaping us the biggest rewards to begin with. Sometimes we look at our model and we think, hey, how do we improve it? But sometimes our model's working. It's not broken. And if you're seeing 35, 40% growth, continue doing what you're doing. You may change it and say, you know what, I want to do it on a larger scale. Maybe if I'm in a huge metropolitan area like, let's say, LA, and I'm doing North LA, maybe we want to expand it and now I have somebody in South LA. We can replicate that procedure, or we can go into new cities or whatever it may be. But, changing what works sometimes can be the worst decision that business owners do. And it's something that I've seen in home inspection, but I've also seen in other industries as well. We hear something and we think immediately, this is the golden ticket, and we stray away from what built us our business to begin with.
Yeah, the conference syndrome, right? You go to a conference, somebody's on stage talking, and you're like, wow, that sounds amazing. And like, throw out what I've been doing. Let's put that in because I want their results. And it's like, well, wait a minute. They're in a different market. They have a different team members. They have different values. They have different everything. And yeah, you're like strategy swapping to try to get ahead. And you realize, yeah, no, that's such great advice. I think focusing on like, hey, what are we good at? What works for us? And just maximizing that rather than just swapping out. Because if you're constantly swapping, you don't get the traction on any of it. And you're constantly spinning your wheels and changing gears, yep. And you're not actually applying the engine and the torque to the ground because you're always just switching all the gears up all the time. And that gets frustrating for the people around you too, because they've helped put effort and energy into the thing that was working. And when you pull the carpet out from under them and you're like, we're going to change gears, they get frustrated. If you do it enough times, they stop putting effort into your brilliant new ideas because they're like, okay, give it 3 months and Matt's going to change it again, And you lose morale. And man, that's such a great wisdom. So how about this in your process of
I call it hurricane syndrome.
Yeah, there you go, hurricane syndrome. That's great. What in your process of growth mindset and shifting into this this kind of idea, what pitfalls, like what things did you do that you say, oh, I shouldn't have done that? Is there anything specific that you said, oh, I tried this and I made the mistake, I had to go back and undo it? Is there anything like that?
We had different models that we did. For inspector compensation that we had to change and evaluate over time. And I'll say we're changing our model again right now for our service department. What we had for our service department worked great on a local scale. It is not scalable. So as we are growing into new market territories, we realize, hey, these have to be changed. But going back into that company culture, we're about to have a meeting with all my service department and come up to them and tell them some of the things and objections that we're coming up with, what our challenges are going to be, and I'm going to have them help me write that model. And that way they're bought in, and also more minds is better than one. I don't always have all the answers. I would say the biggest obstacle that probably comes up to any business owner is getting out of your own way. And if I could get out of my way more times than not, I would be much further in life than I've ever been. I get in my own way. I get busy and I go, I can't do this or I can't do that. We have an interesting thing happening right now. We have the opportunity to bring on a high-price CEO for our pest control company, our high-power CEO. We have an opportunity to buy a very successful home inspection company. We have an opportunity to merge. And we were having a meeting the other day, and I'm like, man, we're spread so thin, let's prioritize. And I go, no, wrong mindset. The true entrepreneur goes, how do we make all this work? And how do we make it work while still having a semblance of life? Yeah. And so it's getting out of our own way and then realizing we don't have to do this. We sit there and say, we can assign this job to this person, we can assign that job to this person, and having other people work. So often we throw it on our own shoulders. Okay, we need to do this. If I give Jessica 2 more jobs, she's going to be, working 42 hours this week instead of 41, and that's going to whatever. But it's just getting out of our own ways. We put up the biggest roadblocks in our own life, both professionally and personally. And if you can start breaking or pulling those roadblocks out, opportunities start opening up. And then it's just a matter of trying to ride the train, because they come at a fast speed when you start removing those roadblocks.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. So last question of the day. I got to ask you this because this is an IEB podcast, and we've mentioned just briefly there were some things that were helpful, but ultimately, what has IEB done for you and your business?
So my introduction to IEB, a lot of it was through my business partner. Mike was able to attend the meetings, attend the Unite, RGT. He even told me he came back from one of them crying. And I was like, you came back from an IEB meeting and you were crying? He goes, I cried at the meeting, I cried on the way home. I was like, what happened? He's like, well, we went through and started dissecting my childhood. And I was like, holy cow. I was like, I don't want to go to that meeting. I don't want to see my father crying at a meeting. But I started seeing changes in him. I started seeing his passion for growth, and it was contagious. And then I could sit in meetings here and there, and I could see the value of it. I just couldn't do it. And then as I started seeing more and more value, I started seeing, okay, I need to get out. I need to get out. I need to get out. Mike's preaching to me to get out. And as I started getting out, I started attending the meetings. I started attending different virtual stuff. I started going to live meetings. And my eyes just started opening. The veil is being lifted. And then I've started creating some small relationships in IEB. I'm working on growing more of those now. But those relationships can be your lifeblood. I mean, you can sit there and have a horrible day, and I have a couple of people in IEB that I could call right now and go, hey, I need a vent. And they will just shut up and listen. And then sometimes they'll call me out on my BS, like, that's really your biggest problem today? Or they may say, you know what, we're experiencing the same thing. What do we do? And I don't know. But we it's nice having that sounding board. It's also nice, with IEB being accessible. I got to sit down with Mark the other day, have a great cup of coffee with him, brainstorm, recommended some things that I thought would help IEB grow because from personal coaching experiences I had in the automotive world. And I, like I tell my employees, they have a voice that it needs to be heard. Mark listened to my voice. It was heard, but also said, we want more. Give me more of your feedback. Give me more information. How does that look? What would it look like? So that was probably one of the biggest moments for me in IEB was, I've been going to shows, I've been listening to stuff, I'm getting the support and the knowledge, and now that I'm becoming more active, I'm working that system more and more and more.
That's fantastic. Yeah, IEB has been a game changer for me and my company as well. And so, yeah, it's awesome to have that we have such an amazing community of business owners and inspectors and just leaders in this industry I really think that our organization has some of the best leaders in the industry, and with people like you and the on board and in IEB with everybody else, it's just I really think that the future is really, really bright. Well, Jeremy, we are going to wrap it up here, man. It's been really great to connect with you and check in. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say IEB, as the inspectors become a whole, we have the biggest group that I know of, and can have the largest impact on our industry. Going back to what I was saying in automotive, we can right the ship as a group and steer the industry and the vision that we see as a community. I think there's a lot of power behind that, and being part of that means that you're on the know versus being on the outside of it and getting the trickle down effect.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about IEB, we would love to have you involved and come check it out. And you can connect with us on social media. And anyhow, it's been a fantastic show, a fantastic podcast. Thank you, Jeremy, for being with us. And until next time.
You've been listening to Empire State of Mind for the home inspection industry and beyond. Our passion is to elevate the home inspection industry with mindset, strategy, and tools. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. For more, follow on Instagram at IEB Coaching. And don't forget to hit the website at www.iebcoaching.com. Learn about IEB at no cost and have all your questions answered on our open call once a month on the third week of the month. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you next time on the Empire State of Mind.